Hi, I thought I'd give a little update on a project that I alluded to previously, which has to do with my simulation class, uh, allowing students to get a more authentic, realistic experience of building a social media campaign and actually launching it and seeing how it goes and responding to unexpected developments. For that to work, so in the earlier video, I just kind of did a proof of concept. Can I build the Mastodon social media open source platform? Can I use that API to interact with it? Can I, at the other end, use the API of GPT OpenAI to process the language such that we take the text of a tweet that a student might compose in Mastodon, put on the local machine, take the local machine, send it to the OpenAI API, have it process that tweet using ChatGPT, and then give some indication of how it should react to it. React as though you're asking for more information, you're skeptical, you're enthusiastic, etc., and then send that back to Mastodon. We got that to work, and that was fine. The next step had always been in my mind to create actual personas, to create thousands perhaps personas that I could put into the Mastodon server, that we would have a similar sort of process whereby each of those personas would react to the students' tweets, not autonomously, but close to autonomously. And that would give a really realistic, authentic point of view from the students. And then actually the students could engage in some of the data science techniques of, harvesting the tweet data from the Mastodon server and for analysis, and they can show their skills on that end as well. So there's a lot of learning potential in this. There's a lot of work for me to make it all work, but we've made a lot of progress. I hadn't been working on it for quite a while, and then I saw this paper out of Google and Stanford looking at something kind of similar, but they're looking at mostly autonomous agents that they've created with individual personas interacting with each other in a kind of artificial community, and that's really fascinating. And building the capability of those folks, those non-folks, of those artificial agents to develop experience and learn based on the interactions and have really sort of human-ish relationships within this artificial environment. And I'm not doing that. That's not my goal. But a lot of the architecture that they developed to achieve that is going to look a lot like the architecture that I have and have developed and am developing for this. So for this, what I have in mind here that is pushing this forward and has so much potential in humanities and social sciences, in particular behavioral sciences, especially quantitative social sciences, behavioral sciences, is the potential for ChatGPT, these large language models, isn't so much, you put in one prompt and it has a model of the world and it just answers that. Now, we seem to be going in that direction, but clearly it's not there. Anybody who's played with it sees the limitations of sort of the one prompt responses that you get. I mean, it's very impressive, but that's not, at least presently, where it excels. Where it excels is understanding human language in a variety of domains, in a variety of formats. And the more you can kind of narrow down the domain you want to talk about, it's been trained on sort of all of the internet. You can imagine the way you create text in Reddit, which it's used a lot of, versus scholarly publication is going to be quite different, and so the model, the platform has to narrow it down. It needs context, it needs specification So that, oh, okay, you're talking, you want me to speak as though I'm a Redditor who's really sarcastic and a kind of a troll, or you want me to speak as though I'm writing for a journal in an academic setting. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, again, where it excels is turning language, human natural language, into numbers, and turning numbers into language. And for especially quantitative social science, behavioral science, that's the bread and butter, right? You take really complex concepts about human behavior, and you distill it down to sort of predicted regularities between this concept and that concept that you express, you measure, you quantify. At this end, you quantify at this end, and you see what the relationship between those two sets of numbers are, in a very simplistic sense, whether that's a regression model, whether that's a logistic regression model. In a very fundamental level, you're doing that. Concept, words, in behaviors into numbers, words and behaviors into numbers, and then looking for patterns in the numbers. So, previously we've done it with armies of RAs, coding and codifying, and PhD students, research assistants. But ChatGPT is exceptionally good at this, and the more you can be precise in how you give guidance to the artificial intelligence on exactly what you mean, the same way you would give guidance to an RA, really specific codified guidance, so there's limited judgment that's required, the more successful you're going to be in doing this. And so bringing it back to this use case with a simulation, how do I want GPT to react to a student's campaign tweet, their media campaign tweet? I could just let whatever model of the world that the GPT engine has created guide it, but that's all kinds of biases. That's the worst of Reddit. That's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. And so the more I can have the computation and the guidance and the scaffolding happening on my computer, my local computer or a cloud server, in something like R or Python, providing the model and the structure with very limited sorts of and guided sorts of prompts for how I want the language model to process the reaction to the tweets, the better it's going to be, and for my purposes. So we have theories. So we go into the literature on what makes a tweet persuasive and what sorts of user attributes are relevant in determining the relevance and the salience of a particular tweet and the likelihood of sharing, the kinds of tone and content that their text they're going to generate in their retweets. All of that we have theory about, right? And so we can use the theory to generate a model, and really you could just find a theory off the shelf in a top tier quantitative journal that not only will have the model specified in a way that's easy to compute, often they'll have the actual SPSS or Stata or R code book that you could download, and the do file or the actual script, and you could just use that directly to specify the relationships between all these concepts. And so you have a tweet and you identify the student campaign tweet, some attributes about it, the nature of the network, where that person sits in the network. Did they have access to this tweet because they were a follower of the organization that tweeted it, or one of their friends retweeted it? How salient is it for that person? What's the tone? Is it using images? All of those things should be guided by theory. And then when we put the prompt into to ChatGPT, we can frame it around the theory. So we can say, react to this tweet as though you're this person. This tweet has a salience of this, or these are the criteria based on the theory. all of that can be programmatically injected into the prompt when you send it, so that when you get it back, it's the space for autonomy for the GPT engine's vision or model of the world is really constrained, because I'm that's a separate sort of activity to find out what sorts of biases are implicit in their model. It's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is use my model, and so that the students are learning and are able to see behind the curtain the theories at work that the best social science research says are relevant in this domain. Okay, that's very long-winded. So what does it look like? So step one was to generate a persona, okay? And again, as I develop a more sophisticated model of how I want the AI to react to tweets, what theory-guided variables are relevant, and to determining how it will individual artificial intelligence bots are going to react to each tweet, I can provide more and more guidance and scaffolding to the GPT engine. And so the way I do that is, in creating the persona, I have variables that I control the distribution of among the bots that I create. And so here I'm generating sort of ethnicities, I'm generating age, gender, and then I'm generating a name for each bot persona that I'm creating. And then systematically we'll create thousands of these bots. And they hopefully will vary in their response based on their individually identified persona, and the way in which they vary will again be guided by theory on the local computer. But that's 5 steps away right now. This is just making sure each step works. So currently we have this prompt to generate the persona. We provide it with an example of what I want the output to look like. So here the output example, 32-year-old Sammy Green, non-binary, freelance graphic designer, has hobbies, attitudes, communication style, some individual quirks, interaction strategy, and influence. So this provision of an example output is incredibly powerful in guiding the AI to give you what you're looking for. And so I provide them with that outcome, and then I feed them the prompt again and say, okay, now you do it for somebody with this name, this age, this gender, this ethnicity, and then give me the result. Again, each of those variables will be complemented by additional variables as I develop a more sophisticated model for what determines how somebody's going to react to a social media tweet. But that's how it works. That's what I'm doing here. And so we've generated here, we have 860 individual personas that we've created here using this with the resulting JSON files here that we can expand. But it has all of that critical sort of information. And so that's the first step. So we have the personas. We have them locally. I have created the personas on the Mastodon server. And so, the final step is going to have everything work effectively on Mastodon. But for now, I just want to make sure we get the model right in terms of responding to the tweets. So we've got this database of personas, and we now need it to interact with, to take each persona and react to a tweet. Okay, so this is the current prompt I'm working with, and as I go along, I'll have more, again, I'll test out different versions of the prompt to find out what is the best way to formulate it. The current generation is very sensitive to how you engineer your prompt. Sometimes throwing the word please in there can have an impact, which is a little bit terrifying, but that's where we are. Okay, so here I'm saying being the user described in the persona below, stored in JSON format, and react to the tweet, which will be provided. React in the following ways. Will you like the tweet? What is the persuasiveness score of the tweet on a scale of -10 to +10? Will you retweet based on your persona? If you retweet, will you include text? If you include text, what will you say based on your communication style and interaction strategy? In 2 sentences, explain your decisions for points 1 through 5. Return the responses to JSON file. Again, I provide an example of what I want the correct format to look like. So here the tweet is: the best way to ensure you have skills for the future labor market is to learn how to work more efficiently with artificial intelligence tools. Okay. And then the persona is reacting to that: Isaac McKnight, 49-year-old business owner with hobbies, etc., interaction style. And so the response, the output would be, yes, he will like the tweet. He finds 7 persuasive. He will retweet. He will include text. And harnessing the power of AI can help shape a more inclusive and progressive future. Let's make sure everyone has access to these tools. AI for all, future of work. And the explanation: though the tweet is not directly related to my progressive view, it is relevant to this persona's interest in social activism and a future labor market. She will like and retweet the message to encourage access to AI tools for everyone while adding a text that highlights her progressive stance. Okay, that's pretty reasonable. And it's worth noting this is GPT 3.5. GPT-4 is already out as an API on a waitlist. I'm on the waitlist, but I don't have access yet to it. But yeah, the quality of these retweets, etc., will just improve over time. So I provide a couple of different examples. This one finds the tweet kind of repugnant. So they give a negative persuasive score. The tweet was, why are we paying taxes for public education? Parents should be deciding what to teach children. And this person is kind of a social activist. And yeah, they find that kind of repugnant. So they will include text advocating for public education for marginalized communities, and they find it not very persuasive. So using this prompt should give us a using this command will give us the ability to take the tweet that's generated in the student's campaign and have each individual persona bot react according to its persona. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is what it will do. So I want to get sort of a base level view of how effective this is going to be and how much variance it's going to have in terms of how people respond. I'm a little worried that the sort of layer on top of ChatGPT, which polices for objectionable content that they don't want to get out of the box, is going to make all my personas react in a way that is perceived as socially acceptable, whereas, in real life, that isn't necessarily how people are going to react to these sorts of campaigns. So I want to get a sense of that before I take it to the next level. And so in order to do that, what I would like to do here, and we can just do it in real time, see if it works, is to take my data frame and we will create a new variable called reaction. And no, I think we already have one called reaction, called tweet reaction. Technically, it's not a tweet because we're on Mastodon, but whatever. And that's going to be equal to, and we'll just put an initial placeholder. And then we will do for loop okay, well, for numbers 1 to 5, we're going to take the that number of observation in our data frame, that particular user, and we're going to set their tweet reaction to be, and we will take all of this to be the output of what we're asking, and we just need to give it the persona and the tweet. And so the tweet is going to be set here. So let's just run with this. Save the orangutans do not buy dirty palm oil. And then the persona is going to be this variable persona, which should, if we're doing, we should be, persona is going to be the, my data frame for, and then it's going to be response cleaned I. Okay. Okay, so what's this doing? We're going to take, for the numbers 1 to 5, again, we have 800 some, but I just want to see how it goes. Actually, let's just do 1 and 2. We'll make sure it works. We are going to take my data frame that has all of the user personas in it, and we're going to create a new column called tweet reaction, and the value of that for rows 1 and 2, personas 1 and 2, is going to be the result of the ChatGPT query, where we ask them to return all of these things, their reaction to the tweet, essentially. And it's going to be this tweet. So we can specify that, change that here, this text that will be right here. And then it will use the persona for the relevant row of the data frame that it happens to be on. It should work. So let's find out. Okay, it is done, and this is my data frame 4, and yes, it has worked. User 1 will like the tweet, so let's just do it here. My data frame 4, tweet reaction 2. User 2 will like the tweet. They found it extremely persuasive. They will retweet. They will not include text. That's just okay. And the explanation: Anna is concerned about environmental preservation, as found to have a direct impact on mental health, which aligns with her interests. This tweet aligns with her values and interests, so she will like it. The text is persuasive and compelling, so she will retweet it, as is, without adding additional text, which will complement her connection to the conservation community. I'm satisfied with that. Probably tonight I'm going to test this tweet with my database of users and look for patterns, make sure, there's sort of a groupthink of, that's not the right term, there's not sort of an artificial bias toward particular types of tweets that I have not intended in the data. And so I want to make sure I have control over it, and it's realistic, and it's responding to, again, my model, as opposed to either the GPT's implicit model of the world or the chat sort of not saying objectionable thing layer that sits on top of the GPT large language model engine, but just make sure it doesn't say crazy things that will give the company bad publicity. I'm happy that it does that. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying, for my purposes, I need to be able to control what the model is spitting out, and so I'm not trying to bypass that, but I just want to know if it's impacting or biasing or changing the model that I'm trying to build into it. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you see where I am and where I'm going. This has been a little wonkier than kind of the high-level stuff I've done before, so I don't know if folks will find it too useful, but I guess we'll see. Let me know if you have any questions or suggestions on things I should do. In reaction to that generative agents paper, playing with the idea of having this layer where, in addition to shifting that number for the topic, how committed they are or their attitude, having this process of reflection happen behind the scenes, where each bot will kind of reflect on their engagements for the last day and have a higher level change in its attitude that we can build into the model. I don't think it's necessary for what I'm doing here, but some really interesting ideas about using that for different projects down the line. Right, so if you stayed with me through the whole thing, thank you, and feel free to have any questions you have about this.